The story of Thailand begins long before the word Thailand existed, long before kings ruled, long before temples rose over quiet plains, long before traders crossed oceans in search of spices and gold. To understand the journey of this land, we have to travel back to a time when the world itself felt new, a time when survival meant reading the rhythm of rivers, following the movement of animals and trusting the wisdom passed down through generations. Picture the Southeast Asian landscape thousands of years ago. The air is warm, thick, and green. Forests stretch endlessly, full of life and danger. Monsoon rains fall with a force that shapes the land, carving riverbeds and feeding the soil. In this world, early human groups begin to settle, slowly weaving their lives into the natural world around them. These people are the distant ancestors of the region's future kingdoms. They have no idea that the land they walk on will one day be home to one of Asia's most iconic cultures. They simply search for places where water, food, and shelter come together in balance. Among the most important places they settle is the basin of the Chao Phraya River. Today, this river flows through modern Bangkok, but thousands of years ago it was the lifeline of early communities. It gave them everything: fish from its waters, fertile fields from its floods, and pathways that connected one settlement to another. The river was not just a geographic feature. It was a teacher, a protector, and a guide. The first people who arrived here came in small groups, carrying stone tools, simple pottery, and a deep understanding of nature. Their lives were quiet but full of meaning. Every sunrise and sunset marked the rhythm of their existence. In the soft soil along the river, they planted early crops. They hunted with stone-tipped spears. They shaped pottery, decorated with simple but beautiful patterns, each design telling something about their world. These early settlements didn't look like cities, but they carried the seeds of something much bigger. Archaeologists digging across Thailand places like Ban Changev found traces of these prehistoric societies. Tools, rice grains, jewelry made from shells and bronze. These objects show that long before kingdoms rose, Thailand was already a place of innovation. People smelted metal, crafted ornaments, and traded goods across long distances. They weren't isolated tribes. They were part of a growing network of human movement that stretched across Asia. As these communities grew, their ideas grew with them. Every generation learned new skills, shaped better tools, and settled deeper into the land. Slowly, small villages became clusters of families, and clusters became early societies. Life by the river taught them unity. Life in the forests taught them resilience, and life under the monsoon skies taught them patience and adaptability, qualities that would become essential in the centuries ahead. But the Chao Phraya Basin wasn't only a home to local settlers. It was also a crossroads. People and cultures from other regions made their way here, bringing new beliefs, languages, and customs. Among the most influential were the Mon and the Khmer. The Mon people, one of the earliest advanced groups in mainland Southeast Asia, arrived with ideas shaped by Indian culture. They brought knowledge of writing, early forms of Buddhism, and traditions of art and architecture. Their presence in central Thailand left a quiet but powerful imprint. Through them, the region connected to a wider cultural world that stretched across the Bay of Bengal. Then came the Khmer influence from the east. At this time, the Khmer Empire was rising in power. Their cities were rich with stone temples, reservoirs, skilled artisans, and powerful kings. Although their political control didn't stretch across all of Thailand, their cultural footprint did. Styles of sculpture, language elements, religious beliefs, and administration methods flowed westward and shaped local traditions. From the south and west came Indian cultural currents, not in the form of armies, but through traders, monks, and travelers. They carried ideas instead of weapons. Hindu epics, Buddhist teachings, new forms of writing, artistic styles, and early concepts of statecraft entered the region. These ideas blended with local customs and grew into something unique, neither fully Indian nor fully indigenous, but a foundation for the Thai cultural identity that would emerge centuries later. This blending wasn't forced. It wasn't a conquest. It was a slow, natural mixing that happens when people meet, share, and learn from each other. Over time, the early settlers in the Chao Phraya Basin began to see the world differently. Their beliefs became richer, their rituals more organized, their communities more structured. They built simple shrines, developed patterns of leadership, and created social roles that helped their groups thrive. Imagine living in one of these early communities. The river is your daily companion. The fields around you glow green in the rainy season and golden in the dry. Children run through the muddy paths of the village, laughing as they chase each other. Elders gather around fires at night, telling stories of ancestors and spirits that protect the land. Traders arrive by boat with goods from distant regions: beads, pottery, metal tools, even religious icons. Every visitor brings a new idea, a new way of seeing the world. This is not yet Thailand, but this is where Thailand begins. These early settlers didn't think of themselves as founders of a nation, yet their lives and choices built the first chapters of the land's identity. They discovered how to make the most of the fertile plains, They learned how to navigate the unpredictable river currents. They adapted to the monsoon cycles, always preparing for the storms and celebrating the moments of calm. Their resilience became the backbone of the region's future civilizations. As centuries passed, these early settlements grew into organized communities. Leaders emerged, sometimes chosen for their wisdom, sometimes for their strength. Rituals were performed to honor ancestors, spirits, and gods believed to dwell in forests, rivers, and mountains. Slowly, the land began to develop social patterns. The idea of a territory, of shared identity, of structured leadership, began to form. Though primitive, these early frameworks would one day evolve into the powerful kingdoms of Sukhothai and Ayutthaya. But before those kingdoms, before the kings, before the palaces and armies, there was this simpler world. A world shaped by survival, curiosity, and connection. A world where the Mon, the Khmer, and Indian cultures didn't replace local traditions but enriched them. A world where every tool, every pot, every ritual revealed something about the people who lived here. The early days of Thailand's history are not filled with dramatic battles or kings claiming the throne. Instead, they are filled with quiet moments of progress. The first harvests of rice, the first copper tools, the first contact with foreign traders, the first spark of organized religion. These small steps, repeated generation after generation, turned ordinary communities into the foundations of an extraordinary future. By the time future Thai-speaking groups began to migrate into the region, the land was already alive with culture. It was a place where ideas had been shared for centuries, where traditions had blended into something rich and adaptable. These early influences shaped the mindset of the people. They shaped how future kingdoms would rise. They shaped the arts, the architecture, the festivals, and even the languages spoken here. This is the hidden beginning of Thailand. Not a story of kings, but a story of common people. Not a story of empires, but a story of settlements learning to grow. Not a story written in royal chronicles, but a story written in pottery shards, ancient tools, and riverbank soil. As we begin this journey through the history of Thailand, this is our starting point. A land rich in nature. A land shaped by rivers and monsoons. A land touched by ancient cultures long before it became a nation. A land where prehistoric communities built the silent foundations for everything that would come next. This is where the story begins. As the early settlements across the Chao Phraya Basin matured, the land moved toward a new chapter. People were no longer living only in villages tied to the river. Communities had grown confident. Trade networks stretched wider. Beliefs were more organized. Leadership began to shift from local elders to rulers who held real power. These changes opened the door to the first early kingdoms in the region. The first among them was Devar. You can imagine the land around the 6th century. Roads were still dirt paths. Forests were thick, and the territory felt open and wild. But in the center of this wide landscape, a new kind of society was taking shape. Devaravati wasn't a single city. It was a group of powerful Mon settlements that shared culture, religion, and leadership. They were spread across central Thailand, but they lived as one cultural world. Walk through a Devaravati town, and you would see something new. Buddhist stupas rising above the trees. The sound of monks chanting early Pali scriptures. Traders speaking different languages as they traveled between settlements. The influence of India was strong here. The people adopted scripts, religious art, and symbols that came from Buddhist teachings, but they reshaped them in their own way, turning simple settlements into organized centers full of life. Devaravati rulers didn't rely on giant monuments or massive armies. Their power came from religion, trade, and cultural unity. Buddhism gave their society a shared identity. Art flourished. Stone wheels of law, Buddha statues, and intricate pottery appeared across their towns. These symbols showed a society thinking beyond survival, a society that believed it had a place in a larger world. While Devaravati grew in central Thailand, another power watched the region from the south. This was the Srivijaya Empire, a maritime kingdom based in Sumatra. Srivijaya didn't rule the land through conquest. They ruled the seas. Their ships controlled the trade routes stretching across the Malay Peninsula, linking China, India, and the islands of Southeast Asia. Srivijaya traders sailed up the Gulf of Thailand, stopping at ports that lay along the coast. Their presence brought wealth and new ideas. They carried gold, spices, pottery, and religious texts. They spread Mahayana, Buddhist practices throughout the region. Temples and shrines in southern Thailand began to reflect this influence. Local rulers learned quickly. If you cooperated with Srivijaya, your ports grew rich. This southern influence blended with the cultural world of Devaravati. The region was no longer a collection of isolated settlements. It was a crossroads, shaped by inland kingdoms and seafaring empires. Every trader, every monk, and every traveler left a mark. And those marks shaped the political map of Thailand's early history. But the story of the region cannot be told without the force that rose from the east, the Khmer Empire. By the 9th century, the Khmer were building stone cities that would become legendary. Their rulers commanded armies, constructed massive temples, and expanded their influence far beyond their heartland. The shadow of Angkor reached into what is now Thailand. It arrived through political alliances, trade, and at times military pressure. Khmer influence brought a new style of leadership. Their rulers were seen as divine kings, guardians of both the land and the faith. Local chiefs in central and northeastern Thailand began to adopt Khmer customs. Temples made of laterite and sandstone started to appear. Carvings of Hindu gods became more common. Water management, reservoirs, canals, and irrigation systems spread as a sign of advanced planning. The Khmer didn't rule every corner of the region, but their presence shaped how future Thai kingdoms would function. Concepts of kingship, architecture, and administration grew out of this contact. A local leader who once managed only a small settlement now imagined himself as the ruler of a territory. The land was learning the idea of centralized power. By this point, the region had become a mosaic, Dvaravati, shaping the cultural heartland, Srivijaya controlling the southern roots and spreading Buddhist ideas, the Khmer pushing in from the east with their powerful statecraft. These three forces didn't erase local traditions. They layered over them, blending belief systems, shaping politics, and preparing the land for something new. As the centuries passed, the population grew. Trade increased, roads improved, river networks connected more towns, and somewhere in the mountains to the north, Thai-speaking groups continued their slow migration southward. The stage was set. The land was ready for stronger states. The people had learned how kingdoms rise, how religion shapes identity, and how trade builds power. Everything that came next, Sukhothai, Ayutthaya, and the rise of Thai civilization began with the influence of these early kingdoms. As Dvaravati, Srivijaya, and the Khmer continued to shape the region, the land that would one day become Thailand entered a period of transformation. Each power influenced the people in different ways, and their ideas blended into the landscape like layers of paint on a canvas. The region was not unified, but it was connected. Every river, every trade route, and every religious center played a part in weaving these kingdoms together. Dvaravati remained the cultural heart of central Thailand. Its towns grew more organized, and their influence spread along the river plains. The people built more stupas, larger monasteries, and open spaces where communities could gather for festivals. Buddhism wasn't just a belief system anymore. It became the moral structure of society. Monks traveled from settlement to settlement, carrying teachings that shaped everything from local laws to village customs. Inside Dvaravati towns, artisans refined their art. Stone carvers shaped Buddha figures with gentle expressions. Potters decorated their work with spirals and lotus patterns. These designs told stories without using words. Stories of spiritual journeys and cultural pride. Markets grew larger. The sound of traders bargaining became part of the daily rhythm. With more wealth came more opportunities, and small communities learned to think like city-states. Further south, the coastlines became busy corridors because of Srivijaya's strong maritime rule. Ports along the Malay Peninsula transformed into gateways between worlds. Their harbors filled with ships carrying goods from China, India, Java, and Arabia. Imagine standing on a wooden pier in the south. You would see sails from many lands, hear a mix of languages and smell spices from distant markets. Srivijaya's presence made the region part of international trade, linking it to the world far beyond Southeast Asia. Local rulers in the Southeast Dinte opposed Srivijaya. They depended on them. The empire's power protected trade routes from pirates and rival kingdoms. In return, local ports supported Srivijaya's influence by maintaining diplomacy and religious ties. Buddhist learning centers grew in the south, spreading Mahayana teachings and attracting monks and scholars. Temples carved with new styles proved how deeply the empire's culture had taken root. While Dvaravati shaped the center and Srivijaya thrived in the south, the Khmer pushed harder from the east. Their ambition was vast. They envisioned a world united through monumental architecture, strong kingship, and divine authority. As they expanded, they reached deeper into the northeast of present-day Thailand. Khmer engineers brought knowledge of constructing cities with planned layouts. They built roads that stretched long distances, connecting their centers of power. They established outposts, each anchored by a temple. These weren't simple buildings. They were carved with scenes of gods, dancers, warriors, and nature spirits, all symbols of Khmer cosmology. Even today, their stones still stand, silent but powerful reminders of their reach. Local leaders in these regions often accepted Khmer authority. Some did it to gain protection. Others saw it as a chance to strengthen their own power by adopting Khmer ways. They learned how to manage irrigation, how to organize labor for large projects, and how to maintain political order. Khmer influence didn't just spread architecture, it shaped how rulers thought. It introduced the idea that a king could be the center of a cosmic order, guiding his people with both spiritual and earthly power. The combination of these three forces made the region more dynamic than ever. Dvaravati provided cultural roots grounded in Buddhist values. Srivijaya tied the land to global trade, and the Khmer brought political structure, engineering, and monumental imagination. For the first time, the region felt like a crossroads that connected local life with international currents. But beneath this complex mixture, something else was stirring. New groups were arriving, slowly, quietly, from the northern mountains. These were Thai-speaking peoples who would one day transform the entire region. They came in small movements at first, settling near rivers and fertile valleys. They didn't challenge the existing powers yet. Instead, they learned from them. They absorbed Dvaravati's religious culture, Srivijaya's trade links, and Khmer ideas of kingship and architecture. This slow migration set the stage for a major shift. As Dvaravati declined, Srivijaya faced new rivals, and the Khmer Empire reached its peak. The region was preparing for a new chapter, one where Thai rulers would eventually rise to power. The story of early Thailand was no longer about a single kingdom. It was a network of cultural streams that met, mixed, and flowed into each other. Each influence left a mark on the land, shaping how future kingdoms would think, believe, and rule. Soon, the era of early kingdoms would give way to the birth of the first distinctly Thai states. The people were ready. The land was ready, and history was turning toward a new dawn. The land had spent centuries absorbing influences from Dvaravati, Srivijaya, and the Khmer Empire. Cultures blended, beliefs traveled, and leadership patterns shifted. By the early 13th century, the quiet evolution of the region began to turn into something bigger. New people had been moving south for generations, Thai-speaking groups who had slowly settled across the river valleys and fertile plains. For a long time, they lived under the shadow of the Khmer, adopting their customs and learning how to navigate life inside a powerful empire. But the world was changing. The Khmer Empire was at its height, but cracks were beginning to appear. Local leaders were growing restless. Trade routes were shifting, and across the northern valleys of what is now Thailand, small Thai settlements were learning how to stand on their own. This is the background to the birth of Sukhothai, one of the most important turning points in Thai history. The founding of Sukhothai, imagine the land in the early 1200s. Forests covered much of the north. Small villages stood along the rivers, each connected by narrow dirt paths. The people farmed rice, raised animals, and practiced a mix of local traditions and Buddhist beliefs. Above them all was the influence of the Khmer Empire, which controlled the region through local governors known as Khan. One of these governors ruled a small but strategic town named Sukhothai. At the time, it wasn't a kingdom. It was a provincial outpost under Khmer authority, but its location made it important. Rivers from the north passed through it. Trade routes from the mountains crossed its plains, and the surrounding land was fertile. Inside Sukhothai lived two men who would change history: Phokan Bang Klang Hao and Phokan Phamu Wang. They were not kings yet. They were leaders of local Thai communities who had grown tired of Khmer control. Their people had been living under foreign influence for generations. But now, as the Khmer struggled to maintain their power, an opportunity opened. Around 1238, these two leaders forged an alliance. They gathered support from surrounding Thai settlements and launched a revolt against the Khmer governor stationed in Sukhothai. It was not a massive war. It was a sharp, well-planned uprising by people who knew the land better than their oppressors. The Khmer governor was defeated, and the city was taken. In that moment, Sukhothai became an independent state. Phokan Bang Klang Hao took the throne and became King Sianthrathit, the first king of Sukhothai. The founding of this kingdom was more than a political change. It marked the beginning of a cultural transformation. For the first time, a major state in the region was ruled by Thai-speaking people with their own identity, values, and traditions. People from surrounding areas watched closely. They saw a kingdom where leaders spoke their language, shared their beliefs, and understood their way of life. Slowly, Thai communities from the north and west began to look to Sukhothai as a symbol of independence and possibility. The story of Sukhothai had begun. The rise of a new leadership style. Sukhothai's early kings were different from the rulers who came before them. Khmer rulers saw themselves as divine kings. Their power came from a sacred connection between the ruler and the gods. They built massive temples, raised armies, and governed from a place of absolute authority. Sukhothai kings took another path. Their rule was personal, rooted in a sense of closeness between the king and his people. Later generations would describe this style as father rule. The king was seen as the head of a family, someone who guided, protected, and cared for his subjects. The people were not just workers or soldiers. They were the children of the kingdom. This idea didn't mean Sukhothai was simple or weak. It meant the kingdom was built on trust. The rulers listened to local leaders, respected community traditions, and encouraged loyalty through fairness rather than force. This leadership style became stronger under one of the most important figures in Thai history, King Ramkhamhaeng the Great. King Ramkhamhaeng's reforms. When King Ramkhamhaeng took the throne in 1279, Sukhothai was already an independent kingdom. But under him, it grew into one of the most powerful states in the region. His reign is often remembered as a golden age, a time when culture expanded, trade flourished, and identity took shape. A king close to his people, Ramkhamhaeng, believed a ruler should be accessible. Stories tell of a bell hung outside the palace. Anyone who had a problem could ring it, and the king would personally listen to their concerns. Whether or not the story is fully literal, it symbolized an important truth. Sukhothai was governed through connection. Common people felt comfortable approaching their king. Local leaders trusted him. This personal bond made the kingdom stable and united. Expansion of territory. Ramkhamhaeng was not only wise, he was strategic. He expanded Sukhothai's borders to include much of northern and central Thailand, the western valleys toward Burma, and parts of Laos. Sukhothai became a major power, respected and sometimes feared by its neighbors. The kingdom controlled rich farmland, key trade routes, and influential religious centers. With expansion came new cultural influences, but Ramkhamhaeng made sure these blended into a uniquely Thai identity. Creation of the Thai writing system. One of his greatest contributions was the creation of the Thai script. Around 1283, Ramkhamhaeng developed a writing system based on ancient Khmer and Mon scripts, but designed to fit the sounds of the Thai language. This achievement changed everything. For the first time, Thai speech could be recorded. Laws could be written. Religion could be taught more widely. Stories, poetry, and inscriptions began to spread. Sukhothai became not just a political power, but a cultural center. The written language became a symbol of unity and pride, one that still forms the basis of Thai writing today. Trade and economic growth. Sukhothai, under Ramkhamhaeng, was deeply connected to trade. The kingdom exported ceramics, textiles, forest products, rice, pottery. It imported luxury goods, religious items, and cultural ideas from China, India, and the Malay Peninsula. Ramkhamhaeng encouraged free trade. Taxes were light. Merchants were welcomed. Foreign traders found safety and opportunity in Sukhothai's markets. Some even stayed, helping to shape the kingdom's economy. His relationship with the Yuan dynasty in China opened new trade channels. Chinese ceramics inspired local craftsmen. New art styles entered Sukhothai. Trade made the city wealthy, and wealth strengthened the kingdom. Religious policy and Theravada Buddhism. Ramkhamhaeng strongly supported Theravada Buddhism, which had been spreading from Sri Lanka. He invited monks, built monasteries, and promoted Buddhist teachings. The religion became the foundation of social values and moral behavior. Under his rule, new temples were constructed, old shrines were improved, religious festivals became more organized, monks gained influence in guiding local communities. This religious revival shaped the kingdom's identity. Buddhism became more than a belief, it became a cultural backbone. Cultural and religious development in Sukhothai. Culture flourished in Sukhothai like never before. The kingdom developed artistic styles that still define Thailand today. The Sukhothai art style. Statues of the Buddha from Sukhothai are considered some of the most graceful ever created. Their features reflect serenity, purity, and movement. The faces are gentle. The bodies flow with soft curves. Many stand in walking poses, something unique in Southeast Asian art. This style captured the spiritual ideals of Theravada Buddhism: calm, compassion, and inner peace. Temples built during this period combined local techniques with influences from Sri Lanka and the Khmer. They were lighter, more open, and designed to create a peaceful atmosphere for meditation. The role of religion in daily life. Buddhism shaped how people behaved, how communities were organized, and how leaders ruled. Monks taught not only religion but education, ethics, and community responsibility. Village life revolved around temple ceremonies, seasonal festivals, Buddhist teachings, moral lessons on generosity and kindness. This strong cultural unity helped Sukhothai remain stable even as its political influence grew. Writing and literature. With the new Thai script, Sukhothai produced inscriptions, poetry, and administrative texts. The famous Ramkhamhaeng inscription describes the kingdom's prosperity, the king's fairness, and the freedom enjoyed by the people. These writings give historians a window into the social life of the time. Why Sukhothai is seen as the first Thai kingdom. Many states existed before Sukhothai, but historians often call Sukhothai the first true Thai kingdom. There are several reasons. 1. It was ruled by Thai-speaking people. For the first time, leadership matched the cultural and linguistic identity of the local population. People sought rulers who understood their traditions and spoke their language. 2. It created a distinct Thai political identity. The father-ruler model became a symbol of Thai kingship. Later kingdoms, including Ayutthaya, blended this personal style with more complex systems. 3. It developed a Thai writing system. This unified communication, record-keeping, and culture. The identity of the kingdom became stronger because language connected everyone. 4. It promoted Theravada Buddhism as a core of society. This shaped the spiritual foundation of future Thai kingdoms. Even today, Theravada Buddhism remains central to Thai culture. 5. It produced a unique artistic and architectural style. The elegance of Sukhothai art marks the beginning of Thai artistic history. Later periods continued these traditions. 6. It symbolized Thai independence. The revolt against the Khmer Empire showed that Thai communities were capable of forming their own powerful state. It marked the beginning of Thai political heritage. The legacy of though Sukhothai's power eventually weakened and the kingdom was absorbed by Ayutthaya in the 5th-10th century, its legacy remained alive. The ideas born in Sukhothai became the foundation for the future of Thailand. The script influenced Thai writing for centuries. The Buddhist practices shaped cultural values. The ideals of leadership influenced later kings. The artistic style became a hallmark of Thai identity. For many Thais, Sukhothai symbolizes a golden age, a time of purity, justice, and cultural harmony. Even in modern Thailand, the name Sukhothai carries a sense of pride. It represents beginnings, it represents identity, and it represents the moment when the Thai people stepped forward to create a kingdom of their own. The story of Thailand cannot be told without Sukhothai. It is the place where the Thai spirit took shape, where culture blossomed, and where a new world began. The birth of Ayutthaya in 1351 marked the rise of a kingdom that would dominate mainland Southeast Asia for more than 4 centuries. Its founding was strategic, deliberate, and full of foresight. King Ayutthaya, known as Rama I, chose the site carefully, placing the capital on an island at the confluence of 3 rivers, the Chao Phraya, the Thonburi, and the Pasak. This location was both practical and symbolic. Rivers were highways for trade and communication, natural barriers against invasions, and sources of life for agriculture. They shaped the rhythm of daily life and dictated the possibilities for expansion. From its very beginning, Ayutthaya set out not merely to exist, but to grow, to dominate, and to become a hub of culture and commerce. The kingdom expanded rapidly in all directions. To the north and west, it absorbed smaller Thai principalities and areas that had once belonged to Sukhothai. To the south, it extended influence over key ports along the Gulf of Thailand, while in the east, Ayutthaya projected power into Khmer-influenced regions. This expansion was achieved through a combination of military strength, strategic marriages, and alliances with local chieftains. Each conquest and alliance strengthened the kingdom, consolidating power in the hands of the Ayutthaya rulers and ensuring their supremacy over the surrounding territories. As Ayutthaya grew, it attracted attention not only from neighboring states, but also from European powers seeking access to the riches of Asia. Portuguese traders were the first Europeans to arrive in the early 16th century, bringing firearms, military advisors, and a knowledge of long-distance maritime trade. They established trading posts, formed alliances with local officials, and became intertwined with Ayutthaya's emerging global network. Soon, the Spanish, Dutch, English, and French followed, each seeking influence, wealth, and opportunity. The kingdom skillfully managed these relationships. Rather than allowing any single European power to dominate, Ayutthaya used diplomacy and trade to its advantage, playing one nation against another while maintaining the sovereignty of the kingdom. European merchants, missionaries, and envoys lived and worked in the capital, contributing to the cosmopolitan nature of the city. Ayutthaya's economy was diverse, vibrant, and highly organized. The fertile plains of the Chao Phraya River allowed rice cultivation to flourish, which not only fed the population but also became a major source of wealth through trade. Rice, along with forest products, pottery, and artisanal goods, formed the backbone of the kingdom's economy. Foreign trade augmented this wealth. Chinese ceramics and silks arrived through established trade routes, while spices and textiles came from India and the Malay Peninsula. Persian merchants contributed silver and luxury goods, and Japanese traders offered swords, ceramics, and rare crafts. The kingdom maintained a system of taxation that encouraged economic activity without stifling trade. The markets of Ayutthaya were bustling with activity. Merchants shouted prices, porters carried goods along canals, and traders haggled over imported fabrics, exotic spices, and fine metals. The presence of foreign communities, Chinese, Malay, Persian, Portuguese, added to the richness and complexity of the capital. Each community brought its own language, traditions, and craft, creating a vibrant mosaic of cultures within the city. Culturally, Ayutthaya flourished in ways that reflected both continuity with earlier Thai kingdoms and innovation unique to its era. The kingdom's architecture incorporated elements from Khmer and Sukhothai traditions while introducing local innovations. Temples, Koldwats, were adorned with towering prangs and graceful stupas. Carved reliefs depicted Hindu and Buddhist narratives, while stone sculptures and Buddha statues reflected a refined aesthetic that emphasized serenity, balance, and elegance. The influence of Theravada Buddhism was evident in all aspects of society. Monks were highly respected and often acted as advisors, educators, and community leaders. Religious festivals punctuated the yearly calendar, reinforcing social cohesion and creating opportunities for civic celebration. Art in Ayutthaya was not limited to sculpture. Literature, chronicles, and poetry flourished, capturing both historical events and mythic traditions. Chronicles recorded the deeds of kings, military campaigns, and diplomatic encounters. Epic poems and folktales celebrated heroes and taught moral lessons. Music and dance were integral to court life, influenced by local traditions, Khmer choreography, and even Chinese and Persian styles brought by traders and immigrants. Ceremonial dress, rituals, and etiquette were codified in the royal court. Reflecting a sophisticated and hierarchical society, Ayutthaya's strategic diplomacy extended beyond Europe. The kingdom maintained tributary relations with China, sending regular missions to the Ming and later Qing dynasties. In exchange, Ayutthaya received recognition, gifts, and trade privileges. Diplomatic contacts extended to Japan, India, and Persia, as well as other Southeast Asian polities. These relationships were not mere formalities. They were active partnerships that influenced trade, culture, and political stability. Envoys carried gifts, letters, and intelligence back to Ayutthaya, keeping the capital informed about developments across Asia and Europe. This extensive network gave Ayutthaya access to resources, technology, and knowledge that strengthened its position regionally and internationally. Despite its power and wealth, Ayutthaya faced constant challenges. The kingdom's location made it both a commercial hub and a target for ambitious neighbors. Burma, under the Konbaung and earlier Tungu dynasties, regarded Ayutthaya as a rival and sought control of strategic territories. Lao states to the northeast and the Khmer remnants to the east occasionally resisted Ayutthaya's authority. Within the kingdom, succession disputes and factional rivalries sometimes threatened internal stability. Managing these threats required careful diplomacy, strong military organization, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. The military of Ayutthaya was a reflection of its wealth and organizational sophistication. The kingdom maintained a standing army, supplemented by conscripted forces from allied towns and provinces. Elephants were a critical component of the army, used in battles and ceremonial displays of power. Infantry and cavalry units were trained and equipped using knowledge acquired from regional warfare and European advisors. Fortifications, including walls, moats, and strategic gates, protected the capital and key cities. During campaigns, Ayutthaya's military demonstrated both discipline and tactical flexibility, allowing the kingdom to expand and defend its territories over centuries. Culturally and socially, the kingdom maintained a complex and hierarchical society. The king sat at the apex, considered semi-divine, and the center of law and morality. Beneath the king were nobles, provincial governors, military officers, merchants, artisans, farmers, and laborers. Social mobility was limited, but merit and service could elevate individuals. Particularly within the military or royal administration, Buddhism provided a moral framework that permeated daily life, influencing conduct, education, and governance. Ayutthaya's wealth and cultural achievements, however, were not enough to prevent eventual decline. By the 18th century, internal weaknesses combined with external pressures, succession crises, corruption, and factional infighting undermined the stability of the kingdom. The economy, while still productive, faced disruptions from shifting trade patterns and increased competition from European powers in maritime Southeast Asia. Burma, under the aggressive leadership of King Shinbuchan, launched a coordinated and powerful campaign against Ayutthaya. The Burmese forces were well-organized, motivated, and determined to assert dominance over the central plains of Thailand. In 1767, after months of siege and relentless assaults, the Burmese army captured Ayutthaya. The city was devastated. Palaces, temples, libraries, and homes were destroyed or burned. Precious artworks and records were lost. Thousands of inhabitants were killed or forcibly relocated. The physical destruction was immense, leaving ruins where once stood a thriving cosmopolitan capital. Despite the fall, Ayutthaya's influence did not vanish. Its culture, art, architecture, and administrative systems persisted, influencing successor states. The ruins of temples and monuments remain as testaments to a city that once connected the rivers, the seas, and the world beyond. Its integration of trade, culture, and diplomacy created a model for future Thai kingdoms, showing how power, wealth, and culture could coexist in a complex and interconnected society. Ayutthaya was a kingdom of contrasts, powerful yet vulnerable, cosmopolitan yet deeply rooted in local traditions, wealthy yet always under threat. Its story reflects the challenges of maintaining a kingdom in a region defined by rivers, forests, and competing empires. It was a center of innovation, art, trade, and diplomacy. It was a stage where local traditions merged with foreign influences, producing a cultural and economic dynamism that defined Thailand for centuries. The city's canals and rivers, its markets bustling with goods from across Asia, its temples towering above the skyline, and the elegant dances, music and poetry of its courtiers, all represent the height of Ayutthaya's achievement. The kingdom's ability to balance internal governance, external diplomacy, economic growth, cultural development, and military strength allowed it to survive for over 4 centuries. Its fall in 1767 marked the end of an era, but the structures it created political, social, and cultural shaped Thailand for generations to come. The year 1767 was one of despair. Ayutthaya, the glorious kingdom that had ruled central Thailand for over 4 centuries, lay in ruins. Its canals ran dry, palaces and temples smoldered, and the people scattered in fear. Burma's invasion had left devastation in its wake. Families were displaced, entire cities were abandoned, and the central plains of Thailand were fractured. The once thriving cosmopolitan capital had vanished, leaving behind ashes and silence. Amid this chaos, the kingdom's survival seemed uncertain. Yet in the midst of destruction, a man emerged who would change the course of Thai history: General Taksin. Taksin was no ordinary leader. Born in 1734, in the region of Ayutthaya, he was of Chinese Thai descent, a detail that would later influence both his perspective and his alliances. Even as a young man, Taksin demonstrated remarkable intelligence, courage, and a keen understanding of military strategy. When the Burmese forces destroyed Ayutthaya, many nobles fled or surrendered, but Taksin refused to bow to despair. He gathered a small but loyal group of followers, including soldiers, local leaders, and displaced citizens who still believed in the dream of a united Thailand. By late 1767, Taksin had established his headquarters on the eastern bank of the Chao Phraya River, in a strategic area known as Thonburi. The location was ideal. The river provided defense, trade opportunities, and rapid transportation, while the surrounding land was fertile enough to support growing populations. Taksin declared Thonburi the new capital. Unlike Ayutthaya, which had sprawled across river islands, Thonburi was more compact but highly defensible. From this base, he began what would become a remarkable campaign of reunification. The kingdom after Ayutthaya's fall was fragmented. Multiple warlords and local chiefs claimed authority over scattered regions. Northern Thailand, Chiang Mai, had its own ruler. The northeast Taksin was fragmented among minor chiefs. Southern provinces were under the control of local leaders who had pledged nominal loyalty to Ayutthaya, but now acted independently. The task of reunifying these territories was immense, and few believed it could be done. Taksin approached this challenge with a combination of military prowess, diplomacy, and psychological insight. He moved swiftly and decisively, gathering troops from loyal communities and employing guerrilla tactics learned from years of regional warfare. His campaigns were both strategic and symbolic. Capturing key cities and restoring order, he signaled that the Thai people could be governed as a single, unified entity once again. Northern Thailand was one of his first targets. Taksin marched his army through rugged mountains and river valleys, confronting local rulers and negotiating their allegiance when possible. His approach often combined the use of force with diplomacy. Those who resisted were subdued, while those who submitted peacefully were integrated into his administrative network. By restoring order and protecting communities from further chaos, Taksin gradually secured loyalty and expanded his influence. In the northeast, the Asan region required careful attention. The area had long-standing local chiefs whose authority was entrenched. Taksin's forces moved efficiently along river routes, employing both military pressure and incentives to integrate these territories into the new Thonburi administration. Local leaders were given positions within his governance system, creating a sense of inclusion while maintaining centralized control. The southern provinces posed a unique challenge. With strategic access to the Gulf of Thailand and the Malay Peninsula, the south had historically been connected to maritime trade networks. Local leaders were initially hesitant to accept Taksin's authority, fearing loss of autonomy. To address this, Taksin combined decisive military action with economic incentives, ensuring loyalty through trade, privileges, and positions in the administrative structure. By the early 1770s, Thonburi's influence extended from northern forests to southern coasts, uniting most of Thailand under one banner for the first time since Ayutthaya's fall. Once the territory was reunified, Taksin faced the challenge of governing a kingdom that had been in turmoil for years. Administrative reform was crucial. He established a strong, centralized bureaucracy, drawing lessons from the previous Ayutthaya system but introducing innovations suited to a kingdom emerging from war and devastation. Taksin divided the kingdom into provinces. each overseen by loyal governors responsible for tax collection, military recruitment, and law enforcement, unlike previous systems where local nobles often wielded independent power. Taksin's governors were closely supervised and rotated regularly to prevent the rise of regional factions. This helped maintain loyalty and prevented rebellions in key areas. He also reformed the tax system. In areas devastated by war, Taksin temporarily reduced or delayed tax collection to help communities recover. When stability returned, a more systematic taxation approach was implemented, ensuring funds for administration, military needs, and public works. This careful balance between leniency and structure strengthened his legitimacy and reinforced loyalty among his subjects. Military organization was another key focus. Taksin created a standing army composed of both professional soldiers and conscripted local troops. He maintained a rapid communication network along rivers and canals, enabling him to respond quickly to uprisings or external threats. The army was disciplined, versatile, and highly mobile, characteristics that had allowed Taksin to succeed in his campaigns of reunification. Diplomacy also formed a part of administrative strategy. Taksin maintained careful relations with neighboring states such as Burma, Cambodia, and Vietnam, balancing military readiness with negotiation. He welcomed Chinese and other foreign merchants, recognizing the economic benefits of international trade. Thonburi became a hub where commerce, politics, and military strategy intersected, reflecting Taksin's holistic approach to governance. Taksin understood that political reunification alone was insufficient. The kingdom's economy had been devastated by war. Trade routes were disrupted, fields had been abandoned, and markets were empty. To revive commerce, Taksin encouraged farmers to return to the land, reconstructed irrigation systems, and reopened key trade channels. River traffic was revitalized, and Thonburi's location at the Chao Phraya's mouth made it a center of both domestic and international trade. Culturally, Taksin promoted Buddhism to reinforce social cohesion. He sponsored the restoration of temples destroyed during Ayutthaya's fall, re-established monastic networks, and supported the training of monks. Religious festivals became instruments of unity, reminding the population of shared identity and traditions. Taksin's patronage of the arts also extended to literature, architecture, and ceremonial practices, signaling a revival of cultural life amidst political reconstruction. Chinese merchants and settlers played a particularly important role during the Thonburi period. Taksin himself, of Chinese descent, recognized the value of their expertise in trade, finance, and military logistics. He encouraged settlement in Thonburi and other key cities, creating a multicultural, economic, and cultural environment that strengthened the kingdom's recovery and long-term stability. Despite his remarkable achievements, Taksin's later years were marked by internal strife and political instability. The intense pressure of military campaigns, administrative responsibilities, and reconstruction took a toll on his mental and emotional health. Historical accounts suggest that he became increasingly erratic and authoritarian, leading to dissatisfaction among nobles and military officers. Factionalism in the court intensified. Rival factions accused Taksin of erratic behavior and questioned his decisions. Some local leaders began to withhold loyalty, while others openly challenged his authority. These tensions, combined with lingering instability from the post-Ayutthaya period, weakened the cohesion of the Thonburi government. In 1782, a coup, led by Chao Phraya, a prominent general and loyalist who had previously served under Taksin, culminated in Taksin's deposition. He was imprisoned and subsequently executed, ending his 15-year reign. While his death was violent and controversial, it did not erase his accomplishments. Taksin had reunited a fragmented Thailand, established a centralized administration, revived commerce, and laid the foundations for the cultural and political systems that would define the next era. The Thonburi period may have been brief, lasting only 15 years, but it was transformative. Under General Taksin, Thailand emerged from devastation and fragmentation to become a unified, functioning state. The centralization of authority, revival of trade, and promotion of Buddhism created stability that allowed the next dynasty to take root. Thonburi's geographic advantages, political reforms, and cultural revival set the stage for the Rattanakosin period, which would begin under King Rama I. The achievements and challenges of the Thonburi period provide insight into the resilience of Thai society, the capacity of strong leadership, and the intricate balance between military power, administration, and culture. The fall of Thonburi marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. While General Taksin had accomplished the formidable task of reunifying Thailand after Ayutthaya's destruction, the brief Thonburi period had left lingering uncertainties. Political factions, economic disruption, and ongoing threats from neighboring powers required a new approach. a stronger capital, and a more enduring dynasty. From the midst of this fragile stability, a new leader emerged, Chao Phraya River, who would become King Rama I, the founder of the Rattanakosin dynasty. His vision and determination would shape Thailand's destiny for generations. After ascending the throne in 1782, Rama I faced the urgent need for a defensible, strategic, and enduring capital. The Thonburi site, while advantageous during Taksin's campaigns, was narrow, prone to flooding, and difficult to expand. Rama I sought a location that would be safer, more sustainable, and symbolically powerful. He selected a site on the eastern bank of the Chao Phraya River, just across from Thonburi, where the river widened and merged with surrounding canals, offering both protection and connectivity. This would become Bangkok, or Krung Thep, the city that remains Thailand's capital to this day. Construction of the new capital was immediate and ambitious. Rama I commissioned a fortified palace, with high walls and strategically placed gates, symbolizing both security and sovereignty. Canals were dug to connect the city with rivers and tributaries, serving as transportation routes, defensive barriers, and sources of irrigation. Temples were constructed alongside the palace, reflecting the central role of Buddhism in society and governance. One of the first major projects was the construction of the Grand Palace in Wat Phra Kaew, home to the revered Emerald Buddha. These structures became not just religious centers, but symbols of legitimacy, authority, and the continuity of Thai culture after decades of war and upheaval. Bangkok's location allowed the city to control both land and river traffic, ensuring rapid deployment of troops and effective administration of surrounding provinces. The establishment of a new capital signaled the beginning of a stable, long-term dynasty, while also giving the Rattanakosin kings a fresh opportunity to redefine political, cultural, and religious priorities. Rama I's reign, from 1782 to 1809, focused on consolidation, stabilization, and cultural restoration. The devastation left by Ayutthaya's fall and Thonburi's short-lived rule required careful attention to governance, law, and societal cohesion. Rama I sought to strengthen the central authority while promoting unity among the population. The first task was to secure the kingdom's borders. Northern Thailand had remained a region of fragmented rule, with Chiang Mai and surrounding principalities often in conflict with neighboring states. Rama I dispatched skilled generals to reassert control, incorporating northern leaders into the Rattanakosin administrative framework while allowing them a degree of autonomy under central oversight. To the east and west, along the Mekong River and the Tanazaram coast, military campaigns ensured that Cambodia, Laos, and the Malay Peninsula acknowledged Thai influence. Defense strategies relied on fortified cities, river control, and a disciplined army modeled on Ayutthaya structures but adapted to modern needs. The kingdom's ability to repel Burmese incursions during this period demonstrated the effectiveness of Rama I's consolidation policies and the value of a centralized capital in Bangkok. Rama I was deeply aware that political stability depended on cultural legitimacy. The destruction of Ayutthaya had caused a significant loss of art, literature, and religious artifacts. Monks and artisans had been displaced, and sacred relics were scattered or destroyed. Rama I undertook an ambitious program to restore temples, reconstruct the Grand Palace, and revive court ceremonies. Buddhist education was revitalized, ensuring that monks could train future generations of religious leaders, while also reinforcing the moral and social order. The literary revival was equally important. Rama I commissioned the transcription and compilation of historic chronicles, epic poems, and legal texts. The Ramakien, Thailand's national epic, adapted from the Indian Ramayana, was refined during this period, reflecting both artistic mastery and cultural continuity. Artisans were employed to create sculptures, murals, and decorative arts in the style of Ayutthaya, preserving the aesthetic heritage of the past, while adapting it for a new era. Rama II inherited a kingdom that was politically stable but still evolving in terms of culture and international relations. His reign is often remembered for artistic and literary flourishing. Bangkok became a hub of poetry, music, dance, and theatrical performance. The king himself was a poet and patron of the arts, encouraging the creation of new works while preserving traditional forms, literature, and drama. During Rama II's reign, literature thrived. Poets and playwrights composed works that celebrated Thai history, morality, and courtly life. Classical Thai dance and drama were refined, blending indigenous elements with influences from Khmer, Javanese, and Indian traditions. The court became a cultural laboratory, producing art forms that would define Rattanakosin aesthetics for generations. Religious institutions were further strengthened. Temples were restored or rebuilt, and monastic education expanded to train a new generation of Buddhist scholars. Festivals, rituals, and public ceremonies were carefully observed to reinforce social cohesion, bridging the urban court culture with rural communities. By the time Rama III ascended the throne, Thailand faced new external pressures and opportunities. Global trade was changing rapidly. European powers were increasingly present in Southeast Asia, seeking access to trade routes, raw materials, and markets. China, with its vast population and commercial networks, became a crucial trading partner. Rama III's reign emphasized economic expansion, diplomacy, and engagement with international powers. Trade with China intensified during this period. Chinese merchants settled in Bangkok, contributing to commerce, finance, and urban development. Chinese techniques influenced architecture, ceramics, textiles, and even military organization. Rama III fostered these relationships, encouraging settlement while maintaining royal oversight to ensure that foreign communities served the kingdom's interests. Tributary relations with the Qing dynasty were formalized. Diplomatic missions exchanged gifts, knowledge, and ceremonial recognition, strengthening Thailand's regional legitimacy. Chinese influence also permeated social and economic life, blending with Thai traditions to create a dynamic multicultural environment. Diplomacy with neighboring kingdoms continued to be a priority. Relations with Burma, Cambodia, and Laos were carefully managed, balancing the need for military preparedness with trade and cultural exchange. Siam's influence extended into the Malay Peninsula, where strategic ports and local rulers were integrated into a broader framework of political and economic control. Rama III's foreign policy reflected both pragmatism and foresight. By maintaining strong diplomatic ties while preparing for potential conflict, the kingdom avoided full-scale invasions and preserved stability. Trade, tribute, and cultural exchange became tools of soft power, allowing Thailand to navigate a complex regional landscape. Under Rama III, Bangkok expanded significantly. The population grew as farmers, merchants, and artisans migrated to the capital. Canals were extended to improve transportation, irrigation, and commerce, creating an urban landscape that combined utility with aesthetic elegance. Markets flourished, producing textiles, ceramics, agricultural goods, and luxury items for both domestic use and export. Economic revival was supported by strong administrative systems. Provincial governors were responsible for tax collection, security, and infrastructure maintenance. The central government in Bangkok ensured oversight while providing incentives for trade, agriculture, and artisanal production. This combination of central authority and local participation allowed the kingdom to thrive despite regional and global uncertainties. The early Rattanakosin period was marked by a synthesis of artistic styles. Ayutthaya's classical forms were preserved and adapted, while Chinese, Indian, Khmer, and local influences contributed to a unique Rattanakosin aesthetic. Sculpture, architecture, painting, dance, and music reflected both continuity and innovation. Bangkok's temples and palaces displayed intricate murals, gilded decorations, and statues that celebrated Buddhist ideals, royal authority, and historical memory. Courtly ceremonies and festivals became increasingly elaborate, reinforcing the monarchy's symbolic power and promoting social unity. Public works projects, including canals, city walls, and bridges, were not only practical but also represented the kingdom's grandeur and organizational capacity. Strategic vision and challenges. Throughout the early Rattanakosin era, the monarchy demonstrated strategic vision. The founding of Bangkok, centralization of authority, promotion of culture, and careful diplomacy created a resilient kingdom capable of navigating both internal and external challenges. Nevertheless, the era was not without tension. Threats from Burma, regional uprisings, and the pressures of global trade required constant attention. Administrative reforms, military organization, and cultural revival worked together to stabilize the kingdom while preparing it for further expansion in later generations. The early Rattanakosin era was a period of rebirth, consolidation, and cultural flourishing. Bangkok became the heart of a kingdom emerging from centuries of warfare, fragmentation, and upheaval. Under Rama I, II, and III, Thailand not only stabilized politically but also regained its identity as a center of culture, religion, and commerce. The monarchy successfully integrated domestic governance, economic revival, international diplomacy, and artistic achievement, laying a foundation that would endure for centuries. The 19th century was a turning point in Thailand's history. The kingdom, which had survived centuries of wars, invasions, and shifting regional powers, now faced a new challenge: the growing influence of European colonial powers. Britain and France were expanding their empires across Southeast Asia, colonizing Burma, Indochina, and the Malay states. In this era of imperialism, Thailand, then known as Siam, stood at a crossroads. Its survival depended not only on diplomacy, but also on transformation from within. This chapter tells the story of two visionary kings, Rama IV and Rama V, whose foresight, courage, and reforms would guide Siam into the modern world. King Rama IV ascended the throne in 1851. Before becoming king, he had spent 27 years as a Buddhist monk, studying not only religious texts, but also Western science, astronomy, and languages. This unusual combination of spiritual discipline and intellectual curiosity shaped the king into a visionary leader, capable of bridging traditional Thai values with the demands of a rapidly changing world. One of King Mongkut's most significant achievements was his approach to diplomacy. At a time when neighboring countries were falling under European control, he recognized that Siam's independence could be preserved through negotiation, compromise, and strategic modernization. He welcomed Western advisors and learned from foreign knowledge while carefully maintaining Siamese traditions. King Mongkut also initiated reforms in governance and education. He modernized the bureaucracy by introducing new systems of record-keeping and taxation, improving efficiency and reducing corruption. In education, he encouraged the study of science, mathematics, and foreign languages. Schools were established to teach practical knowledge that would support a modern state. Religion, too, saw a transformation under Rama IV, while remaining a devout Buddhist. He encouraged reform within the Sangha Buddhist monastic community. He promoted discipline and scholarship among monks, and he sought to harmonize traditional Buddhist practices with rational, structured systems. However, King Mongkut's reign was also marked by external pressures. The British and French were expanding aggressively, and several treaties were signed that ceded territory or granted concessions to European powers. Despite these challenges, Mongkut's balanced approach prevented Siam from being colonized, demonstrating that intelligence and diplomacy could match the force of foreign armies. When King Chulalongkorn, Rama V, assumed the throne in 18, he inherited a kingdom that was aware of the threats but still largely traditional in its governance and society. Determined to ensure Siam's survival, he embarked on a bold program of modernization, drawing inspiration from European systems but tailoring them to fit Thai culture and values. One of his earliest reforms was administrative. Rama V recognized that an effective government was the backbone of a strong nation. He restructured the bureaucracy, replacing hereditary positions with merit-based appointments, and created ministries that specialized in finance, justice, education, and foreign affairs. This professionalization reduced inefficiencies and centralized authority in a way that allowed the king to implement nationwide reforms. King Chulalongkorn also modernized the legal system. He codified laws, replacing arbitrary punishments with structured legal procedures. Courts were reorganized, and judges were trained to apply the law consistently. These changes increased public trust in the government and established a framework for fairness and accountability. Education was another priority. Rama V established schools throughout the kingdom, including those for commoners, not just the elite. Western-style subjects like science, mathematics, and foreign languages were introduced alongside traditional Thai and Buddhist studies. By investing in human capital, Rama V created a generation capable of leading Siam in a rapidly globalizing world. Infrastructure also saw dramatic improvement under Rama V. Roads, railways, and telegraph lines connected cities and provinces, facilitating trade, communication, and governance. Modern irrigation systems improved agriculture, supporting population growth and economic stability. These changes transformed Siam from a collection of semi-independent regions into a cohesive, functioning nation-state. Perhaps the most remarkable achievement of Rama IV and Rama V was their ability to keep Siam independent while neighbors fell to colonial powers. This was not the result of luck, but of careful planning and strategic adaptation. Both kings recognized that modernization was inseparable from diplomacy. They signed treaties with Britain and France that balanced concessions with sovereignty. While some territory was ceded to satisfy European powers, Siam avoided full colonization, a feat few in the region could claim. At the same time, modernization itself acted as a shield. By adopting Western-style administration, law, and education, Siam presented itself as a civilized nation, deserving of respect from colonial powers. The kings demonstrated that Siam could govern itself efficiently, reducing European pretexts for intervention. Beyond diplomacy, Rama V implemented reforms that reshaped Siamese society. One of the most notable was the abolition of slavery and corvée labor, a system in which commoners were required to provide labor to the state or local nobility. By gradually ending these practices, the king fostered social stability and improved the lives of his subjects. Land reforms were also introduced, allowing peasants greater security and encouraging productive agriculture. Taxation systems were standardized, replacing arbitrary levies with structured, predictable payments. These measures strengthened the bond between the state and its people, reinforcing loyalty and national identity. Culturally, Rama V encouraged the adoption of certain Western practices, such as modern dress codes for officials, while still celebrating Thai traditions. He believed that modernization did not mean abandoning one's heritage. Instead, it was about adapting to survive and thrive in a changing world. The combined vision of Rama IV and Rama V transformed Siam into a resilient, modern state. Their leadership preserved independence, built an effective government, and laid the foundation for social, legal, and economic modernization. They proved that thoughtful reform, guided by wisdom and foresight, could protect a nation even in the face of imperial ambition. Today, the era of Rama IV and Rama V is remembered as a period of enlightened leadership and national pride. The temples, palaces, railways, and schools built during this period stand as monuments not just to their rulers, but to a nation that embraced change while honoring tradition. Through their reforms, Thailand entered the modern era, not as a colonized territory, but as a sovereign kingdom ready to navigate the complexities of the 20th century and beyond. 20th century political changes. The 20th century brought a wave of political transformation to Thailand, a period marked by revolutions, wars, and the struggle to find a balance between tradition and modern governance. The foundations laid by Rama IV and Rama V had modernized the nation, but they could not prevent the pressures of a new era: nationalism, global conflict, and internal demands for democracy. The 1932 revolution and the end of absolute monarchy. For centuries, Thailand had been ruled under an absolute monarchy, where the king held complete power over the state. However, by the early 20th century, new ideas of democracy and constitutional governance were spreading worldwide. Educated Thais, influenced by experiences abroad and growing frustrations with rigid social hierarchies, began calling for political reform. In 1932, a group known as the People's Party carried out a bloodless revolution that transformed Thailand's political landscape. For the first time, the monarchy agreed to share power under a constitutional framework. The absolute monarchy was abolished, and a constitutional monarchy was established, where the king's powers were largely symbolic, and elected officials held authority over governance. This revolution marked the beginning of Thailand's long and often turbulent journey toward democracy. While it introduced modern political structures, it also set the stage for decades of political tension and struggles between civilian governments and the military. Rise of military governments. The new constitutional system, however, was fragile. Political inexperience, social divisions, and economic pressures created instability. In this environment, the military began to play an increasingly dominant role. Throughout the mid-20th century, Thailand experienced a series of coups and military governments, each claiming to protect national stability or defend the monarchy. Military leaders shaped policy, controlled key institutions, and often intervened during periods of civilian unrest. While these governments sometimes brought order, they also limited political freedoms and slowed the development of a stable democratic system. This era highlighted the delicate balance Thailand had to maintain between tradition, authority, and modernization. World War II and Japanese involvement. The outbreak of World War II brought Thailand into the sphere of global conflict. Initially, Thailand declared neutrality, but in 1941, Japanese forces invaded as part of their campaign across Southeast Asia. Facing overwhelming military pressure, the Thai government allied with Japan, allowing Japanese troops to move through the country. Despite this alliance, Thailand also became a center of resistance. The Free Thai movement, composed of students, officials, and ordinary citizens, secretly opposed Japanese occupation and collaborated with the Allies. This duality reflected the complex political realities of the time. Survival, pragmatism, and national pride all guided decision-making in a dangerous era. After the war, Thailand navigated a delicate path. While the country avoided the severe repercussions faced by fully occupied nations, it had to rebuild its international reputation and address internal political tensions intensified by the war. Post-war political instability. The end of World War II did not bring immediate stability. Thailand faced political unrest, with shifting governments, coups, and public protests shaping the post-war era. Economic challenges, social change, and the rise of ideological movements influenced politics. The struggle between democratic ideals and military authority continued, setting the stage for the later Cold War era, during which Thailand aligned with the West to secure security and economic aid. Amid this turbulence, Thailand continued to modernize, investing in infrastructure, education, and industrial development. Political instability coexisted with social progress, demonstrating the resilience of a nation adapting to the pressures of a rapidly changing world. This chapter shows how Thailand's political landscape in the 20th century was defined by transformation, conflict, and adaptation. From the end of absolute monarchy to post-war reconstruction, the country navigated challenges that tested its institutions, leadership, and national identity. These events shaped modern Thailand and set the context for the contemporary political system we see today. The 20th century brought a wave of political transformation to Thailand, a period marked by revolutions, wars, and the struggle to find a balance between tradition and modern governance. The foundations laid by Rama IV and Rama V had modernized the nation, but they could not prevent the pressures of a new era nationalism, global conflict, and internal demands for democracy. The 1932 revolution and the end of absolute monarchy. For centuries, Thailand had been ruled under an absolute monarchy, where the king held complete power over the state. However, by the early 20th century, new ideas of democracy and constitutional governance were spreading worldwide. Educated Thais, influenced by experiences abroad and growing frustrations with rigid social hierarchies, began calling for political reform. In 1932, a group known as the People's Party carried out a bloodless revolution that transformed Thailand's political landscape. For the first time, the monarchy agreed to share power under a constitutional framework. The absolute monarchy was abolished, and a constitutional monarchy was established, where the king's powers were largely symbolic, and elected officials held authority over governance. This revolution marked the beginning of Thailand's long and often turbulent journey toward democracy. While it introduced modern political structures, it also set the stage for decades of political tension and struggles between civilian governments and the military. Rise of military governance. The new constitutional system, however, was fragile. Political inexperience, social divisions, and economic pressures created instability. In this environment, the military began to play an increasingly dominant role. Throughout the mid-20th century, Thailand experienced a series of coups in military governance, each claiming to protect national stability or defend the monarchy. Military leaders shaped policy, controlled key institutions, and often intervened during periods of civilian unrest. While these governments sometimes brought order, they also limited political freedoms and slowed the development of a stable democratic system. This era highlighted the delicate balance Thailand had to maintain between tradition, authority, and modernization. World War II and Japanese involvement. The outbreak of World War II brought Thailand into the sphere of global conflict. Initially, Thailand declared neutrality, but in 1941, the Japanese forces invaded as part of their campaign across Southeast Asia. Facing overwhelming military pressure, the Thai government allied with Japan, allowing Japanese troops to move through the country. Despite this alliance, Thailand also became a center of resistance. The Free Thai movement, composed of students, officials, and ordinary citizens, secretly opposed Japanese occupation and collaborated with the Allies. This duality reflected the complex political realities of the time. Survival, pragmatism, and national pride all guided decision-making in a dangerous era. After the war, Thailand navigated a delicate path. While the country avoided the severe repercussions faced by fully occupied nations, it had to rebuild its international reputation and address internal political tensions intensified by the war. Post-war political instability. The end of World War II did not bring immediate stability. Thailand faced political unrest, with shifting governments, coups, and public protests shaping the post-war era. Economic challenges, social change, and the rise of ideological movements influenced politics. The struggle between democratic ideals and military authority continued, setting the stage for the later Cold War era, during which Thailand aligned with the West to secure security and economic aid. Amid this turbulence, Thailand continued to modernize, investing in infrastructure, education, and industrial development. Political instability coexisted with social progress, demonstrating the resilience of a nation adapting to the pressures of a rapidly changing world. This chapter shows how Thailand's political landscape in the 20th century was defined by transformation, conflict, and adaptation. From the end of absolute monarchy to post-war reconstruction, the country navigated challenges that tested its institutions, leadership, and national identity. These events shaped modern Thailand and set the context for the contemporary political system we see today. The 20th century was a period of dramatic political transformation for Thailand, a time when the country struggled to balance tradition, modernization, and the forces of global change. The century opened with the monarchy as the central pillar of power. But by its middle decades, Thailand had become a nation navigating constitutions, coups, foreign threats, and social upheaval. Understanding these changes requires exploring the events that shaped governance, society, and Thailand's role in the world. For centuries, Thailand had been ruled under an absolute monarchy. The king wielded complete authority, with governance deeply intertwined with royal authority and traditional hierarchies. While this system preserved stability and continuity, it also limited public participation and stifled reform. By the early 20th century, the winds of change were blowing across the globe. Constitutional monarchies and democratic movements were emerging worldwide, and educated Thais, especially those who had studied abroad, began to question the absolute power of the monarchy. In 1932, a group of 193 reform-minded officials and military officers, collectively known as the People's Party, staged a bloodless revolution that changed Thailand's political system forever. The revolution did not overthrow the monarchy entirely, but it ended absolute rule. King Projitipak Rama VII reluctantly agreed to the establishment of a constitutional monarchy. A new era had begun, with the king's role becoming largely symbolic and elected officials taking responsibility for governance. The 1932 revolution was not just a political event, it was a social awakening. It marked the emergence of a new class of politically aware citizens and highlighted the tensions between traditional authority and modern governance. While it opened the door to democracy, it also created challenges. Many Thais were unaccustomed to political participation, and the institutions of government were not yet fully developed. This fragile foundation would become a recurring theme in Thailand's political story throughout the century. The early constitutional period was unstable. Political inexperience, competing factions, and social divisions made governing difficult. Against this backdrop, the military increasingly became a central actor in Thai politics. By the mid-20th century, military leaders were seizing power, often through coups, claiming the need to restore order and protect national interests. Military governments played a dual role in Thailand's development. On one hand, they provided stability during periods of political chaos. On the other, their dominance limited the growth of democratic institutions. Civilian governments struggled to assert authority, and public participation in politics was often restricted. This pattern of alternating civilian rule and military control became a defining feature of Thailand's political landscape. The military's influence extended beyond governance. They controlled key institutions, including the police and civil service, and shaped policy to prioritize national security and stability. Education and propaganda were often used to reinforce loyalty to the state and the monarchy, intertwining military authority with national identity. While these measures helped maintain order, they also created tensions between progressive reformers and conservative forces. As global conflict engulfed the world in the 1940s, Thailand faced new external pressures. Initially, the country declared neutrality, seeking to avoid entanglement in the war. However, its strategic location in Southeast Asia made neutrality difficult. In December 1941, Japanese forces invaded Thailand as part of their campaign across the region. Facing overwhelming military power, the Thai government quickly allied with Japan, allowing Japanese troops to move through the country. Thailand's cooperation with Japan was pragmatic. It sought to preserve sovereignty and protect its population, but it also placed the country in a delicate position internationally. Behind the scenes, resistance movements like the Free Thai movement actively opposed Japanese occupation. Students, officials, and ordinary citizens engaged in covert operations, collaborating with the Allies to sabotage Japanese plans. This duality, official collaboration with covert resistance, demonstrated the complexity of Thailand's political and social environment during the war. Despite the alliance, Thailand avoided the harsh consequences suffered by many other occupied countries. Post-war negotiations and diplomacy helped restore Thailand's international standing. But the experience highlighted the vulnerabilities of the nation in a rapidly changing world. It also reinforced a lesson that survival required both strategic alliances and internal resilience. The end of World War II did not bring immediate stability to Thailand. The country faced multiple challenges: rebuilding the economy, managing social change, and navigating political transitions. The period saw a series of short-lived governments, coups, and counter-coups, reflecting the continuing struggle between civilian authority and military influence. Political parties emerged, and new ideologies, nationalism, socialism, and democracy, competed for influence. Protests and public demonstrations became more common as citizens demanded greater participation and accountability. At the same time, economic pressures and rapid urbanization created social tensions, particularly in Bangkok and other growing cities. Thailand's post-war experience was also shaped by the Cold War. The The United States and its allies provided economic and military support to counter the spread of communism in Southeast Asia. This alignment brought modernization aid and infrastructure development, but also reinforced the role of the military in governance. Thailand had to navigate a complex geopolitical landscape while addressing domestic political challenges. Throughout the 20th century, Thailand's political changes reflected a continuous balancing act between modernization and tradition. The monarchy remained a central symbol of national unity, even as its formal political power waned. Military governments and civilian leaders alike sought to modernize the state while preserving Thai culture and social cohesion. This period also highlighted the role of the people in shaping governance. While democracy was fragile, public opinion, protests, and civil society gradually began to influence political decisions. Education, urbanization, and communication technologies helped create a more informed citizenry, laying the groundwork for future democratic movements. Thailand's experience in the 20th century shows that political transformation is rarely linear. Revolutions, coups, wars, and reforms all played a part in shaping a nation that had to adapt rapidly to both internal and external pressures. By the end of the century, Thailand had become a modern state with complex governance structures, a strong national identity, and the experience to navigate the challenges of the global stage. As Thailand moved into the latter half of the 20th century, it found itself navigating a world defined by superpower rivalry, rapid economic development, and shifting political tides. From the Cold War to the dawn of the 21st century, Thailand experienced profound changes in its domestic politics, international relations, and economic landscape. This chapter explores how external pressures, internal reforms, and economic transformations shaped modern Thailand. Thailand and the Cold War, U.S. influence during the Vietnam War. The global confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, the Cold War reached Southeast Asia in dramatic ways. Thailand, strategically located near conflict zones like Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, became a frontline ally of the United States. By the 1960s, as the Vietnam War escalated, Thailand offered both military bases and political support to U.S. forces. The presence of American military personnel and aid transformed Thai society. Economically, the U.S. provided financial support, infrastructure projects, and military training. Politically, the alliance reinforced the power of pro-Western military governance and strengthened Thailand's position in regional geopolitics. Thai leaders saw alignment with the United States as essential to preserving sovereignty and countering the spread of communism in Indochina. Socially, the influence of American culture became visible in cities like Bangkok. American music, fashion, and consumer products found their way into everyday life, especially among urban youth. This cultural exchange created a new generation familiar with Western ideas while still grounded in Thai traditions. At the same time, not all Thais welcomed this influence. Anti-American sentiment occasionally flared, particularly among leftist groups and student activists, setting the stage for domestic unrest. Economic growth in the 1980s. The decades following the Vietnam War saw Thailand transform economically. By the 1980s, the country experienced rapid industrialization and urbanization. Export-oriented manufacturing became the backbone of the economy, producing textiles, electronics, and automobiles for global markets. Bangkok grew into a bustling metropolis, attracting migrants from rural provinces in search of jobs and better opportunities. The government invested heavily in infrastructure, building highways, bridges, and ports that connected cities and facilitated trade. Tourism emerged as a major industry, with Thailand's natural beauty, rich culture, and historical landmarks attracting millions of visitors. The combination of manufacturing, services, and tourism fueled one of Southeast Asia's most remarkable growth stories. During this period, Thailand also saw improvements in education, healthcare, and social services. Literacy rates rose, and more children, including girls, had access to schooling. Urban centers became hubs of innovation and cultural exchange, creating a society that was both modernizing rapidly and deeply rooted in traditional Thai values. However, rapid growth brought challenges. Income inequality widened between urban and rural areas, and environmental degradation became an increasing concern. The government struggled to balance economic expansion with social equity and sustainability. Despite these issues, the economic boom of the 1980s and 1990s positioned Thailand as a regional economic powerhouse, admired for its resilience and adaptability. The 1997 financial crisis. Thailand's rapid economic expansion came to a sudden halt in 1997, when the country experienced one of Asia's most severe financial crises. Known as the Tom Yum Kung crisis, it began with the collapse of the Thai baht, which had been pegged to the US dollar. Speculative investments, excessive borrowing, and structural weaknesses in the financial sector triggered a wave of bank failures and business bankruptcies. The effects of the crisis were immediate and devastating. Thousands of workers lost jobs, families lost savings, and businesses closed across the country. Urban areas, once symbols of prosperity, were suddenly marked by economic anxiety and uncertainty. The government was forced to accept an international bailout, with the International Monetary Fund imposing strict economic reforms, including fiscal austerity, banking sector restructuring, and financial oversight. Despite the severity of the crisis, Thailand demonstrated remarkable resilience. Within a few years, the economy began to recover, aided by exports, tourism, and structural reforms. The crisis also prompted reflection on economic management, governance, and regulatory oversight, influencing policies in the following decades. Shifts between democracy and military rule. Throughout the late 20th century, Thailand's political landscape remained a complex interplay of democracy and military influence. Even after the constitutional monarchy was established in 1992, civilian governments often struggled to maintain authority, while the military repeatedly intervened through coups and power consolidation. The 1970s and 1980s were marked by student activism, mass protests, and occasional violent crackdowns, reflecting deep social tensions. Citizens demanded more participation, transparency, and accountability, while the military sought to maintain stability and protect traditional institutions, including the monarchy. By the 1990s, Thailand had embraced a form of electoral democracy, with political parties, regular elections, and increased public participation. However, the balance between elected officials and military influence remained delicate. The military continued to play a significant role behind the scenes, often shaping policy decisions and intervening when political conflict threatened stability. The 1997 financial crisis further tested the political system. The government's response to economic hardship was scrutinized, fueling public debates over governance, corruption, and accountability. These discussions helped foster a politically engaged citizenry, increasingly aware of their role in shaping Thailand's future, a nation in transition. The period from the Cold War to the early 21st century illustrates Thailand's journey as a nation negotiating multiple transitions, from a Cold War ally to a growing economy, from rapid modernization to crisis recovery, and from fragile democracy to ongoing debates over governance. Thailand's ability to adapt to global pressures, while maintaining its unique cultural identity, is a recurring theme in its modern history. The interplay between tradition and modernity, stability and reform, civilian authority and military influence, defines the nation's experience during these decades. Even as Thailand faced internal and external challenges, it continued to evolve. Urbanization, education, and economic diversification transformed society. Regional integration and global trade exposed Thailand to international norms, ideas, and competition, while also providing opportunities for growth and influence. The nation's resilience, creativity, and pragmatism became hallmarks of its political and economic identity, the legacy of the late 20th century. By the early 21st century, Thailand had emerged as a complex, modern state. The Cold War shaped its international alliances and military structures. Economic growth in the 1980s and 1990s demonstrated the potential for rapid development. While the 1997 financial crisis highlighted vulnerabilities and the need for reforms, the oscillation between democratic governance and military intervention underscored the ongoing struggle to balance authority, participation, and stability. The lessons of this era continue to resonate. Thailand's political institutions, economic strategies, and social structures were all shaped by these decades of challenge and change. The period set the stage for the new millennium, with citizens increasingly aware of their rights and responsibilities, governments more attentive to economic management, and the nation prepared to navigate the uncertainties of globalization. As Thailand entered the 21st century, it faced the challenge of balancing rapid modernization, political evolution, and the preservation of its rich cultural heritage. The last 2 decades have seen the country navigate complex political transitions, vibrant social movements, and significant economic growth. Contemporary Thailand is a nation of contrasts, where ancient traditions coexist with globalized urban life, and where democracy, monarchy, and civil society continuously interact in shaping the country's future. Political landscape from the 2000s to now. The political scene in Thailand during the 21st century has been dynamic and at times turbulent. Following decades of alternating military and civilian rule, the 2000s saw a new generation of political actors, parties, and leaders emerge. reflecting both popular aspirations and ongoing challenges in governance. In the early 2000s, Taksin Shinawatra rose to prominence as a charismatic leader and became prime minister. His policies focused on economic development, social welfare programs, and rural investment. Millions of Thais, particularly in rural provinces, supported his initiatives, seeing tangible improvements in their livelihoods. However, his tenure was also marked by controversy, with critics accusing him of authoritarian tendencies, corruption, and attempts to consolidate power. In 2006, Taksin was removed from power by a military coup, demonstrating the persistent influence of the armed forces in Thai politics. Over the following years, Thailand experienced a cycle of political protests, new elections, judicial interventions, and further coups. These events highlighted the ongoing tension between democratic processes, the military, and institutional checks and balances. By the 2010s, the political landscape became even more polarized, with large-scale demonstrations and street movements reflecting the deep divisions in Thai society. Parties aligned with urban elites, the monarchy, and traditional institutions often found themselves at odds with those representing rural and economically marginalized populations. Despite these tensions, the country maintained a functioning democracy, with elections, political parties, and active citizen engagement playing central roles in governance. Role of the monarchy today? The monarchy in contemporary Thailand remains one of the most significant institutions in the country, though its role has evolved from direct governance to symbolic and moral authority. King Bhumibol Adulyadej, who reigned until 2016, was widely respected and seen as a unifying figure, guiding the nation through periods of crisis and social upheaval. His long reign helped maintain national stability, and his initiatives in rural development, agriculture, and education left a lasting legacy. After King Bhumibol's passing, King Maha Vajiralongkorn assumed the throne. While the monarchy retains deep cultural and social influence, it now functions within a constitutional framework where political power primarily resides in elected officials. The monarchy continues to serve as a symbol of national identity, unity, and tradition, and its presence remains central in both public ceremonies and the Thai cultural consciousness, social movements, and civic engagement. In recent years, Thailand has witnessed a surge in social movements and civic activism, particularly among young people and urban populations. Movements have focused on political reform, environmental protection, human rights, and social justice. The 2020 pro-democracy protests, for instance, called for increased transparency, reduced military influence in politics, and a re-examination of the monarchy's role in governance. These movements reflect broader global trends, the rise of youth activism, the influence of social media, and the demand for participatory democracy. At the same time, Thailand's social movements illustrate the country's capacity for dialogue and negotiation. Even in periods of tension, these movements have emphasized peaceful protests, civic education, and engagement with political institutions, highlighting the maturity of Thai civil society, economy, tourism, and culture. Economically, contemporary Thailand has continued to thrive, leveraging its strategic location, natural resources, and skilled workforce. Tourism remains a cornerstone of the economy, with millions of visitors drawn to Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Phuket, and other destinations renowned for their cultural heritage, scenic beauty, and vibrant local traditions. Agriculture, manufacturing, and technology also contribute to economic growth. Thailand is a major exporter of rice, electronics, automobiles, and processed goods. Urbanization has created dynamic cities, fostering innovation, entrepreneurship, and global business connections. Despite challenges such as economic inequality and environmental concerns, Thailand's economy demonstrates resilience and adaptability in a rapidly globalizing world. Culturally, Thailand continues to celebrate its traditions while embracing modernization. Festivals, temples, and rituals coexist alongside contemporary art, cinema, and fashion. Thai cuisine, music, and performance arts have gained international recognition, reinforcing Thailand's reputation as a nation proud of its heritage while open to global influences. Thailand's place in the modern world. Thailand today occupies a unique position in Southeast Asia. It is a hub of trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. The country engages actively in regional organizations, such as ASEAN, and maintains relationships with major global powers. Its experience navigating colonial pressures, wars, economic booms, and political transitions has given Thailand a perspective on governance, sovereignty, and social cohesion that is both historically grounded and forward-looking. Modern Thailand faces challenges common to many nations, balancing democratic aspirations with stability. managing economic growth sustainably, and responding to environmental and social issues. Yet the country's resilience, adaptability, and commitment to cultural identity remain its defining strengths. Conclusion and personal outro. As we reflect on Thailand's journey from ancient kingdoms to the contemporary era, it becomes clear that the nation's history is one of resilience, adaptation, and continuous reinvention. From the early struggles to maintain sovereignty, through modernization, wars, political upheaval, economic growth, and social movements, Thailand has consistently demonstrated the ability to navigate challenges while preserving its identity. If you've enjoyed this journey through Thailand's history, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more stories from the past to life, exploring not just events, but the people, culture, and ideas that shape the nation. Here, you can insert past pictures, historical images, or visuals from each era to complement the narration. Thailand's story continues today, with its vibrant culture, dynamic economy, and engaged citizenry guiding it into the future. Every chapter in its history offers lessons about resilience, adaptation, and the enduring spirit of a nation proud of its heritage, while embracing the possibilities of the modern world.